Hi guys, my name is Katie Moreno and I'm the founder of OrganizedAdvisor.com, and today's session is called Island Advising. Before it gets started, there it goes. Um, I have a little disclaimer. It's very legit, as you can see. And the illustrations used in this presentation are dramatizations, and there is not any resemblance to any real life scenarios. Everything is purely coincidence and not intended to portray, mimic, mock, or imitate any person or actual events. So, if you happen to relate to the things that you're going to see in this presentation today, purely coincidental, definitely not the experience that every advisor has. And I say that without a drop of sarcasm. So usually when you become a new yearbook advisor, you are really excited about it. You're like, wow, this is so great. I love this island. Like, I love this job. It's going to be so fun. It's going to be so creative. I have autonomy. I don't have a team of people telling me what to do or like dictating what I have to do, or how I want to do it. I have a staff of students that we can really work together collaboratively, build this wonderful yearbook or newspaper or broadcast or whatever it is that you do. And the students are going to learn so much. It's going to be such a fun job. You're so excited. You're bopping around with your little ponytail. You were in heels to work. You got your coffee. You are ready to go. Even if you are voluntold to do this job, it can be really exciting. You come to workshops like this and you're like, wow, this is so much information, but I'm loving it. This is so fun. And you're just excited and hyped up for the year. Then you meet your rep and they're like so informative and great and helpful and they're so nice and you're just like, this is going to be so good. You talk to your administration, they seem totally supportive. They're so excited that you're in this position. A lot of times people that are yearbook advisors come from either an English background, so they used to teach English, they still do teach English, or an art background. And so they might have already been a teacher at that school, really comfortable with the way things are set up, and then they just are adding on yearbook or newspaper or both. And then you meet some parents and they can't wait to buy a yearbook. It's the beginning of the year. You've already maybe sold a couple because people like to do that kind of at open house or at, like a back to school event. Then you get to meet your yearbook staff and they all get along so well and they're so excited to join the staff and they just want to get started working when school starts. And you're just like, this is going to be a great year. You get off the phone with your rep and you're like, I'm feeling good. Then you start teaching. You start the year and you start going through like boot camp and you start teaching your kids photography and all these things. And you're like, okay, that's how you conduct an interview. Let me make myself a little smaller and I'll put myself over here. You're like, and that's how you conduct an interview. You teach your kids how to do um, question writing and interviewing and reporting. And then you start teaching them photography, and you're like, that's how shutter speed works. And that's how you design a layout. And that's how you write a caption. And then also, don't forget, you have to tag everybody that's on the index and make sure you teach them. That's how you tag them. And then also, don't forget sports photos. We have to learn how to do that, not just technical photography, but storytelling and actually capturing an event from start to finish. And ISO. You might be a brand new photographer. Maybe you're an English teacher or you are still an English teacher and you have never picked up a camera in your life. You have no idea what ISO is. So you're learning right alongside them, but you're able to teach them. You only have to be one day ahead of them, right? So you're like, that's why ISO is important. We don't want grainy photos. And then you're like, oh, wait, like we have to sell this thing. Like we can't just make this book really beautiful. Like, what's our marketing plan? You get together with your editors and you're like, here's what we're going to do on social media. And here's what we're going to do with e-marketing. And here's what we're going to do with posters and flyers and all the traditional types of media. We have to sell this thing, right? And then also, you're doing this for the first few weeks of months of school, and you're like, oh, we have a deadline tomorrow. Okay, we got this. I think we're moving and grooving. And then you're like, oh wait, grades are due. Like I'm still a teacher. It's just crazy. Like I still have all these things. Also, I haven't taken my attendance. I have to take my attendance every single class period, every single day, and look at all those speech bubbles, and it can be really overwhelming. So then you're stressed, your staff can see you're stressed, and you go up to little Sally and you're like, why isn't your spread done? We have a deadline tomorrow. And she's like, I don't know. She's on her phone. She has her cute little overalls because they're back in style. And you're like, what have you been doing this whole time? She doesn't know. Then you go up to Johnny and you're like, why isn't your story written? The deadline is tomorrow. What's going to happen? What are you doing? He goes, I don't know, because kids are kids and they never know. And then you go up to, we'll call him Steven, and he hasn't even started. He has his backpack on at 30 minutes into class. He hasn't even sat down. He's just bopping around the classroom, going crazy, bouncing off the walls. And you're like, what are you doing with your life? You haven't started on anything? And you can see you're visibly getting frustrated. You're still wearing heels to work, though, for some reason. And then he says, the coach never emailed me back. So he just decided to wait on him. Well, newsflash, little Steven, Coach is never going to email you back. You have to go to that coach directly. But he never told you that he was waiting on that coach to email him back. So he's just been conveniently waiting and doing nothing for the past couple of weeks. I think we've all had kids like that. But like I said, no coincidence intended. No uh, connection intended. It is a coincidence if it feels that way. Um, and then you start getting stressed. You're like, we are definitely not going to make this deadline. We have pages that aren't done. Pages aren't even started. Like, what are we doing? How are we going to make this happen? So you're like running towards the deadline. You're frantic. You're like, what can I submit and what do I have to hold and wait on? So then you start to talk to another advisor friend and you're like, look, I'm just really stressed. There's these kids that aren't doing anything. They're not working. They're not doing what they need to do. They don't even care. I can't get them to care. They're not motivated by grades. They're not motivated by like snacks. They're not motivated by anything. There's no sense of urgency whatsoever. And your friend is like, girl, same. Like this like post COVID world, the kids are so apathetic. They don't care about anything. I can't get them to interview in person. Everything just feels like so difficult to do, and I just feel like it shouldn't be this hard. So then you start to talk about a specific situation that you're experiencing. And she's like, you know what? Actually, I have also experienced that. Last year, I tried this, and I wonder if you did this to try and make this better. And then you're like, you know what? That's a really good idea. I hadn't thought about that. I've been so stressed about everything else. I hadn't even a chance to think about it, and think of a solution. I'm going to try that. Thank you so much. So then you've had a chance to vent, you've had a chance to talk it out, and you start feel better. Then you're happy again. So that is a very common experience for advisors. Like I said, if there's anything that you relate to in that scenario, it's purely coincidence. However, obviously, I said that sarcastically. I think every advisor experiences those kids that just don't do anything, the overwhelm with the amount of stuff you have to teach, the never ending to do list. And I think it's really important that whenever those feelings creep up, we know what to do with them and where to go in order to feel better. And it's not just about how it feels, it also affects the quality of your publications. So, why does any of this matter? You guys are teaching so many things: the pedagogy, the publications production, the printing, the marketing, the graphic design, photography, social media, writing. But also, you're like a counselor to these teenagers and kind of like a pseudo parent. You might have a deadline tomorrow, but if your editor in chief just broke up with her boyfriend during lunch and is hysterically crying on your couch, they take precedence. And so you are also a counselor to them, and you're also still thinking about the deadline that's tomorrow. But then you're also an event planner because you're in charge of pep rallies in addition, because as the yearbook advisor, like that makes sense. And then you're also having to advertise and sell and market your book that you're creating. And then you're also having to be a First Amendment expert because you don't want to get fired and you want to protect your students' rights while also, explaining to your administration what everyone's role is and that sort of thing. And it's just a lot. And so if you feel overwhelmed and you feel stressed out, or you're at this workshop and you're like, this is so much information, how am I even going to do this? Or you're an experienced advisor and you're like, yep, that feels right. You're not alone. Like, this is a very normal experience. Everyone has that name tag that says, hello, I'm busy. Don't even worry about my name. It doesn't matter because I'm just busy. So just so you know, it is a very normal and common and expected feeling to feel overwhelmed and to feel alone. Typically, you're on your campus alone as the advisor and you're advising publications and you don't have a team. And with that comes autonomy. You don't necessarily have to spend time in meetings every week or lesson planning together, but that also means you have multiple preps by yourself. You have to turn in all the lesson plans and create them out of your own brain without a team. You also don't have the support of a team. And so it can feel really isolating to be a singleton, on your campus. And that's where, island advising came from, is that it feels like you are on a desert island and you're all by yourself and no one understands what you do. And no one really cares about what you do because the coaches don't answer. And they just think that you make pretty pictures and you make the yearbook look cool. A lot of times people don't even realize that students make the yearbook. Like, they think that it's made by a company or it's made by parents or something like that. They don't realize that it's actually students creating this and they don't value it. Also, you probably have multiple preps. If you are an advisor, you probably don't teach just yearbook. So you're also teaching English or art, if that's like your background, or you're teaching other journalism subjects like newspaper or journalism one or photojournalism or broadcast or whatever, maybe multiple levels. I mean, I've heard of advisors that have like 7 or 8 preps by themselves, and that means their whole day, every single class period is a different subject. And even though they're all related, like you might have all journalism subjects, they're not the same. And so you have to create lessons and projects and plans and schedules and calendars for each one. by yourself. And that's, again, can feel really overwhelming and isolating. And then you're not just teaching, you are producing publications, which means you're running a small business. You are not just having to come up with lessons and deliver them to students and then evaluate their progress. You are producing publications that have deadlines and need to sell to parents. And then there's a product at the end of the year that they've purchased, and it needs to be good. But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to feel so overwhelming and so isolating all the time. We are social creatures as human beings, and we thrive when we are in communities that support us. And so, what's really important as an advisor, and especially right now, there's so many new advisors post COVID, a lot of teachers left. It's really important that we find that community and really cling to it and really like dive into it, because that's where we're going to feel the most supported and also feel like we're not alone. So it's really important that you connect with advisors at all different levels. So if you're brand new, you're going to connect with advisors that have been doing this for a couple of years or like decades. And then if you've experienced, it's important to still connect with those new advisors because they have something to bring to the table too. So the experienced advisors, obviously they can guide you to resources. There's so much information out there. There's curriculum, there's lesson plans, there's helpful tools and tricks and groups that can help you with information that doesn't make it all on you. I remember when I first started teaching, I needed a lesson about something, and I didn't even think. I was so overwhelmed and so just like in the motion, I didn't even think to Google it. Like, I know that seems crazy, but like I was like, I need this, I'm gonna make this. And so I spent like hours at night one night banking some activity with a worksheet and then a quiz at the end, I think. And obviously, like, that stuff already exists, that stuff is already there. I probably could have Googled it and found something really quickly that I can borrow or in a Facebook group and download and then use and not have to reinvent the wheel every time. There's a ton of resources out there, and experienced advisors can really help you find them, but also teach you how to use them. They can also be a sounding board when you need to vent, like our cute little teacher here in the beginning when she was on Zoom with her friend. It's important just to be able to have an outlet to talk about these things. Even if the person you're talking to might not have a solution, one, they might have someone that they know that would have a solution, or just talking it out can really be helpful. And so sometimes you can come up with solutions on the spot just by having another brain that understands what you do. Talking to your other teacher friends or your family or your spouse is helpful, but it's also they don't understand exactly what it is that you do. And so finding other advisors that understand publications and yearbook and teaching is really important to be able to kind of have that same playing field when you're talking and venting, and also being there for them when they need to vent. And then they can also support you through tough situations. I was an advisor for about 6 years in Katy. I am Katy from Katy, right outside of Houston. And I quit teaching in 2019 because of a very tough situation with an administrator. And I couldn't have gotten through it without my advisor friends. And so I think it's really important that you make those connections early on, obviously before there's an issue. So when there is, you have someone to call on and be like, hey, like, what do I do in this situation? What would you do? Am I acting within, my rights and my students' rights and correctly, and that sort of thing? And hopefully there's never a tough situation, but sometimes there is. This job comes with some liabilities that, if you're not made aware of, they can really blindside you. And so knowing what those are is important, but also being able to handle them and knowing what to do is maybe even more important. Then it's also really important to connect with new advisors, not just so you can share your knowledge with them, but because they have a lot of information that they can bring to the table too. Because new advisors are coming in to the community with a different perspective. They might have been a teacher for several years in English or art. They might be a math teacher or a science teacher. They might be brand new out of college. They're bringing a fresh perspective to the community, and that can be really helpful, because I think sometimes you get kind of stuck in your ways, and it's easy to just think I know what I'm doing, and you kind of have this like well-oiled machine. But there's always room for improvement, and having someone ask questions either allows you to see where you could improve or confirms the way that you're doing things is the most efficient and effective for you. They also can introduce and implement a lot of technology. This has happened most recently through COVID. Everybody moving to virtual school and having to do things on Zoom and videos. That's really difficult sometimes for older teachers or teachers that have never done it before. And having a new crop of advisors that grew up with technology can make it a lot easier. And so making sure you have those relationships, if there's a new software that comes out, like right now, a lot of new design software is coming out, and it's helpful to have advisors that are really comfortable with it that can help introduce it. And then also, and I think this is probably the most important, is that they can relate to 21st century learners. And this is primarily talking about not just new advisors, but younger advisors. Learning is different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and 20 years ago. And particularly, even the past couple of years have been wildly different. And I think that it's really important that we're not just teaching the way we've always taught because that's what we're comfortable with. We need our students to be able to grasp this information, and things like really short videos are more effective to teach them certain concepts than droning through a PowerPoint of slides. I know that right now this is a video and it's virtual learning, and it's sometimes it's like all we can do to present content is virtually, and obviously we would prefer it to be in person. But also students these days, like teenagers, they want that type of content. They absorb TikToks, like thousands of them in a minute, it feels like, and they remember and retain information that way. So we want to be able to create content that teaches the way that 21st century learners are learning. And so, like I said, like it's important that you connect with both more experienced advisors than you and new advisors, because I think both have a lot to bring to the table. And then you start to take a sigh of like relief. You're like, I can breathe again. Your hello, I'm busy sign gets accompanied, you're still going to be busy, with a little Hawaiian lei and a flower in your hair, and your coffee cup turns into a little coconut, and you start to feel at home in your job, and you start to get like those feelings of overwhelm go away, because you're like, okay, I know that I'm not alone in this. I know that if I have a problem, I have people to go to. If I need something, there's support out there, and you're not just alone on your desert island. I don't know if it's quite a tropical vacation, but you're not alone on your desert island. And so I want to give you some practical, tangible ways to actually get involved and actually make this happen. I think that it's really, really hard to start getting involved in a community when you're brand new. I know that as an adult, I think that it is harder to make friends than it ever was as a kid. And in a professional setting, it can even be harder. But I will tell you that the journalism advisor community is super welcoming. I think that it's like the best group of people that you could be a part of. And we're also so glad to have you if you are a brand new advisor. Like there are so many of you that have started in the past couple of years, and we love being able to share our knowledge with you. And so here are a couple ways that you can actually get involved in the community. One is join Facebook groups. There are a ton of Facebook groups out there that you can join, and there's ones that are specifically targeted for high school or middle school or yearbook or newspaper. And it's really important to go ahead and add yourself to those. But don't be a lurker. Like we want you to immerse yourself and like really lean into the community. And what that means is the give and take. So if you go into these groups, like especially in the beginning, it's totally fine to read all the comments and read the posts and kind of see what people are talking about. But if you have a question, don't be afraid to post it. And if you have a comment, like a response to somebody about something that they have a question with and you have a solution, post it. We want to make sure that we're fostering a community where people feel like they can contribute without it being scary. Also, like you're doing right now, attending workshops. There are so many workshops that are held by publishers, by the state organizations, by the national organizations. It is so important that you go to them. This is your professional development. And so even if you don't take students to them always, I would always recommend, like, especially the JEA NSPA National Convention, like go to it without students for your first year to just get the lay of the land. It is a big conference. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of sessions. There's a lot of like different activities throughout, and it's good just to go and experience it and learn for yourself, and then take kids, because taking kids on a trip across state lines is a big deal, and so you want to make sure you're comfortable with it and know what to expect before you take kids. But go to those workshops and go to those sessions and really make the most of your time there, because the people that are teaching sessions are also experienced, and they can help you with whatever issues you have, even if it's not related to a particular like session. And also the sessions are really, really good. So it's always good to attend those workshops. And then you want to, while you're there, especially intentionally seek to build relationships with other advisors. So that's, something that it does take you maybe out of your comfort zone to go talk to somebody, but go sit with somebody at lunch, go connect with somebody during the beginning of a session or at the end, and get to know people, get their contact info, and keep up with them. If at the very least, like follow them on Instagram, and so you can kind of leave comments on each other's posts, and you start to build those relationships. I will say that I have met some of my very best friends in my personal life through my professional life through advising, and it's just so cool. I think that something that brought us together is was our job, but we're actually friends outside of work, which I wouldn't have had if I didn't go up to her. I mean, speaking of one person in particular, but if I didn't go up to her at a workshop and I was like, "Hey, I'm Katie. I want to talk to you," like it wouldn't have happened. So you have to be intentional about it. Then, like I said, that lesson that I like spent hours working on one night, I probably could have Googled. Just be resourceful. Don't reinvent the wheel. If you feel like you're like, I need a lesson for this, and I have to create a worksheet, there's probably something out there already for it. So definitely know where to find your resources, and then have a couple that you like always go back to. The JEA curriculum is wonderful. There's your publisher probably has a curriculum as well. There's so many websites out there that are meant to provide resources to journalism advisors specifically. And then going back to kind of like those Facebook groups is be generous, like share your stuff, share your expertise, share your opinion. Don't be a lurker. Like take the time to really invest in those communities, because the more you give, the more you're actually going to receive as well. You also start to establish yourself. You have a name that people recognize, and people start to, want to go see you at a workshop, or want to meet up with you for coffee while you're at the JEA convention or whatever it is. I'm going to move myself again. And then also, in addition to like networking at workshops, network locally, and not just like with your other journalism teachers, but also like your whole district, your local news stations, your local journalists. Like you're teaching your students to do this as well, and so setting a good example and building relationships with those people as well is going to be the best way to do that. But also, you have feeder schools, like you have middle schools or elementary schools that are feeding into your school. If you can build relationships with those students and those advisors now, then recruitment will be really easy when those kids are in high school and they're seeing if they want to do your program, because they already know who you are and you're already a familiar face on campus. And lastly, subscribe to the organizedadvisor.com. This is a little bit of a shameless plug for my website, but it is just meant to help you. It's completely free. We send out emails about weekly. Sometimes we skip a week or two, but we try to give as much resources as we can out. And everything we do comes directly from advisor requests. So if you ever need anything, reach out to me. I started the website in 2017 to be a place where advisors can share resources. It's grown from just my own resources that I created back in the day to a team of advisors nationwide that are helping each other. And so if you ever need anything, reach out. If I don't have something on the website already, I have a team of advisors who might have something we can post. Chances are, if you need it, other advisors do too. And so we're always looking to create really a big repository of content that is just meant to help you and make your job easier and give you the tools that you need to really build a thriving journalism program. So the last note is all of this information in detail, like the actual Facebook group links, the different workshops that are available, are all on one page on our site at organizedadvisor.com/resources. And we're constantly adding to that, updating that. And so that would probably be a good first start. In addition to the email list, if you are just getting started and you want to kind of see what's out there, that will lead you to other places like JEA curriculum, like schooljournalism.org, all the other places that have a bunch of good content. Organizedadvisor.com is more so like a roadmap to all the other great resources that are out there. So if you have any questions, though, you can also contact me. My email is just Katie, Katie, at organizedadvisor, advisor, by the way, .com, or you can fill out the contact page and it comes straight to my inbox. So if you have any questions, or I can help you with anything, please reach out. Otherwise, I'll see you around, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.